Oh, there you go. Okay. I'm going to sit on the bench here. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 7 चैप्टर 8 टेक्स्ट 7। श्री प्रह्लाद उवाच न केवलं मे भवतश्च राजन् स वै बलं बलिनां चापरेषाम् परे अवरे मिस्थिरजङ्गमाये ब्रह्मादयो येन वशं प्रणीतः Shri Prahlāda Mahārāja न केवलं मे भवतश्च राजन् स वै बलं बलिनां चापरेषाम् परे अवरेमि स्थिरजङ्गमाये ब्रह्मादयो येन वशं प्रणीतः प्रह्लाद उवाच न केवलं मे भवतश्च राजन् स वै बलं बलिनां चापरेषाम् परे वरे मे स्थिरजङ्गमाये ब्रह्मादयो येन वशं प्रणीतः केवलं मे भवतश्च राजन् स वै बलं बलिनां चापरेषाम् वरे मा स्थिरजङ्गमाये ब्रह्मादयो येन वशं प्रणीतः. Vaishnavis. Shri Prahlāda उवाच केवलं मे भवतश्च राजन् स वै बलं बलिनां चापरेषाम् परे वरे मे स्थिरजङ्गमाये ब्रह्मादयो येन वशं प्रणीतः. Shri Prahlāda Uvacha. Prahlāda Mahārāja replied, No, not. Kevalam, only. Me, of me. Bhavataha, of yourself. Cha, and. Rajan, O great king. Saha, he. Vai, indeed. Balam, strength. Balinam, of the strong. Cha, and. Aparesham, of others. Pare, exalted. Avare, subordinate. Ami, those. Sthirajangamaha, moving or non-moving living entities. Ye, who. Brahmādaya, beginning from Lord Brahmā. Yena, by whom. Vasham, under control. Pranītaha, brought. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Prahlāda Mahārāja said, My dear king, the source of my strength, of which you are asking, is also the source of yours. Indeed, the original source of all kinds of strength is one. He is not only your strength or mine, but the only strength for everyone. Without him, no one can get any strength, whether moving or not moving, superior or inferior. Everyone, including Lord Brahmā, is controlled by the strength of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:41, Yad yad vibhuti mad sattvam Srimad urjitam eva va tattadeva vagachatvam mama tejam shisambhava. Know that all beautiful, glorious and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. This is confirmed by Prahlāda Mahārāja. If one sees extraordinary strength or power anywhere, it is derived from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To give an example, there are different grades of fire, but all of them derive heat and light from the sun. Similarly, all living entities, big or small, are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One's only duty is to surrender, for one is a servant and cannot independently attain the position of master. One can attain the position of master only by the mercy of the master, not independently. Unless one understands this philosophy, he is still a mudha. In other words, he is not very intelligent. The mudhas, the asses who do not have this intelligence, cannot surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Understanding the subordinate position of the living entity takes millions of births. But when one is actually wise, he surrenders into the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevah sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all the causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Prahlāda Mahārāja was a great soul, a Mahatma, and therefore he completely surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord. He was confident that Krishna would give him protection under all circumstances. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanishalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And today we are discussing from the Srimad Bhagavatam as the pastime of Srila Prahlāda Mahārāja moves towards its dramatic conclusion. And what is happening here is actually the final conversation between father and son. Prahlāda and Hiranyakashipu, our son and father, they have had many different conversations. I'll be using this as a whiteboard for writing and drawing certain things. So in the Bhagavatam itself, multiple rounds of their conversations have been described. And those are centered around Hiranyakashipu asking Prahlāda what he learned in school. And in this particular conversation, the same question is asked, and from Prahlāda's perspective, this is like a final attempt. You could say, the last-ditch effort he's doing over here to try to make his father see sense. And from Hiranyakashipu's perspective, the reply of Prahlāda is like the last straw. He says, enough is enough now. That if others could not kill you, I will kill you. So, if you can talk about high-stakes conversation, this is probably an extremely high-stakes conversation. Prahlāda, we can understand his situation. Sometimes when we see scriptural characters, there are two ways we can go. One is we can idolize those characters, or we can sort of deify them. They are just like models of idol behavior, and we just must retire them upstairs. They're so great that they are almost unrelatable for us. On the other hand, we can humanize them. The humanize means try to understand the situation they are in. Try to, if we were in that situation, what would be the emotions, concerns, fears, thoughts going on in our mind? And how would we have addressed? And then when they address those issues differently, why did they do that? So, if we consider from that perspective over here, it seems as if Prahlāda's actions, Prahlāda's word specifically, it's in the Bhagavatam in the 7th canto, Prahlāda actually is not described doing many actions. Most of his actions are words. So there is this quite striking things in the Bhagavatam. If you see in the 1st canto, Krishna throughout is only described doing actions. He practically speaks no words. The only places where see for example, Kunti Maharani offers prayers and the Lord just smiles and accepts. When Bhishma offers prayers, now the Lord does not speak over there. The Lord sees him off out of this world. Even when Arjuna offers prayers to Krishna, Krishna does not speak elaborately. So the Bhagavatam has different narrative styles at different times. So here mostly Prahlāda's words and very less actions. His actions are that he inspires all his comrades, his co-students to start dancing. So most of the action is through words. It like that if you consider movies, some movies have a lot of action and very little dialogues. So they are mostly plot driven. But some movies are more character driven. And the action may not be much in that. The plot may also not be very complex. But then it's the character, we enter into the character more. We understand the character more. So it's to the extent people find the character interesting, then they get engrossed in the movie. So this is more, at least from the Prahlāda's perspective, it is a character-driven story. By character, I mean the character of the character. By I mean the nature of the person. So it is not so much from Prahlāda's perspective an action-driven story. Hiranyakashipu and Narasimha will have a fight. And Prahlāda is watching that fight. So from that perspective, if you consider the way the story is being narrated, it is largely the appreciation of the character that can help us immerse ourselves in the story. So normally, if you consider two people are talking with each other, especially if one of them is angry, then the other person tries to cool things down, tries to calm things down. And this is all the more so if there is a power asymmetry between the two people. If one person is like a giant and the other person is tiny, then when there's this power asymmetry, then if somebody is angry, then we will naturally try to cool them down. If there's a bully and there's a small kid, there's an authority figure, there's a gangster, and there is any kind of authority figure, and there's a small person. But here, Prahlāda seems to be provocative. It's almost deliberately provocative. So why is he doing that? He was asked by Hiranyakashipu, even the Devatas tremble at just the raising of my eyebrow. And why is it that you are fearless? On whose power are you fearless like this? So the question is also interesting that Prahlāda is just a tiny 5-year-old boy, and Prahlāda is not described in the Bhagavatam as any kind of heroic warrior. That there are practically no descriptions of Prahlāda Mahārāja ever fighting any wars, even when he becomes older. At this point, he's a small person, a small child. So Hiranyakashipu is confident that this kid can't have the audacity to stand against me. It's like even in normal life, if there's a big gangster and a small kid standing up to him, the gangster will ask, who is behind you? On whose power are you? Do you have the temerity, the audacity to challenge me? Like if some big boxer is there and that boxer punches someone, and if the boxer punches, that person just gets knocked out. And that person stands as if nothing has happened. The boxer will say, I need to go behind. Is there a pole supporting you? How are you standing? So that is the question. How are you standing? On whose power are you resting yourself? So that is it's an angry question, and the answer seems to be even more provocative. What is the answer? He's essentially saying that actually, you think there is this power asymmetry between us. You think you are so powerful and I am so powerless. But actually, even your power is not your power. And your power has come from a source, and that source power, also is not the original source of the power. That's why it mentions Brahma also. So there are few things as insulting, at least apparently insulting, in the sense that which are likely to insult a person, as reminding them that what they have is actually not theirs. Now, if there is some wealthy business magnate and they have a child who is very spoiled and who spends a lot of money, and that kid is bragging about their money, and somebody reminds them, what have you earned? None of this is your money. It's just your parents' money that you're using. The kid will get angry, So, in this case, it's not just a kid. So, why is Prahlāda seeming to incite? Hiranyakashipu was saying that your power is not your power. The source of your power is also not the original source of power. It is that Lord who is the source of all power. So at one level, this is great courage that Prahlāda is showing. Now courage can sometimes be a sign of being fearless. Let me say, courage is fearlessness only. What is the difference? They are synonyms. Well, not exactly. Courage can be a sign of being fearless, or courage can be a sign of being reckless. So it can be both. So reckless means a person is going into unnecessary danger. So when Prahlāda is showing such courage, is he being fearless or is he being reckless? What do you think? Fearless. Why? Because we like Prahlāda and we don't think he will be reckless. See, here Hiranyakashipu is angry and Prahlāda seems to be making him angrier. We have an incident in the Bible where it's said that when Jesus was fasting on the top of the mountain, at that time towards the end, the devil came and tempted him. And the devil then after that said, you say that God will always protect you. Then jump off this mountain. Let us see if your God protects you. So Jesus replies, yes, God will protect me. But I am not going to jump off the mountain. If you push me off the mountain, God will protect me. So the implication of the story is that a devotee does not deliberately put oneself into danger and demand that God protect me. And we have that same theme twice it comes in the lives of Goswamis. I think it's primarily Raghunath Das Goswami. He's doing bhajan, and a tiger comes near. He's on the banks of a river, the Jamuna, the Radhakund, and then a water body basically. And then a tiger is nearby, and Krishna is standing with a stick. And the elder Goswamis tell him that, we are here in Vrindavan to serve God. We should not be taking service from God. So you make a bhajan kutir for yourself. You make a small hermitage where you can do your bhajan. Another time he is doing bhajan and it's very hot. So he's completely absorbed in bhajan, so he doesn't notice the heat also. But he's sweating and Radharani comes over there. And Radharani is shading him with her sari. And again the Goswami says, you're not, we went to serve Radharani, assist her in the service to Krishna. We shouldn't be taking service from her. So the point I'm giving these examples, both from within our tradition and beyond our tradition, is to illustrate that generally a devotee does not do something that will demand that the Lord come and protect, in one sense. That's not the mood of a devotee. And yet, Prahlāda seems to be doing something which is most likely to make Hiranyakashipu angrier. And that's what predictably happens. Hiranyakashipu becomes so angry, you think that my power is not my power, you think Vishnu is more powerful than me, and you think Vishnu will protect you? Where is your Vishnu? Is he in this pillar? Is he everywhere? Is he in this pillar? And then after that we know what happens thereafter. But the point is that why is Prahlāda speaking like this? So I'll make 3 points in the class today. This was just the introduction. And the 3 points I will make are using an acronym CHIT. CHIT is consciousness. So how we can become more conscious of Krishna. So the first point I already discussed, that is the courage of Prahlāda in speaking these words. So that courage can seem foolhardy, but still it is an extraordinary level of courage. And I'll explain now why it is not foolhardy. So the second part I'll take is what is the implication of his statement. And that implication can be understood if we look at, if you look at the subsequent verses also. But broadly speaking, there are two conceptions of God. That the two conceptions of God. One is that God is the best of all beings. That there are many beings in this world, and God is the best of all beings. This is more like a hierarchical conception. Say there are many beings of different degrees of power, and the highest being is God. And to some extent, this idea has some basis in our tradition also. Say for example, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that the Jiva has 40 qualities generally. Say the Brahma has 50 qualities, Shiva has 55 qualities, Vishnu has 60 qualities, and Krishna has 64 qualities. So it seems to be like a hierarchy. And in that hierarchy, there are steps going upward, 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 and the topmost is God. Now this is one conception of God. Now the other conception is God is not the best of all beings. God is the basis of all being. That he doesn't just exist at the top of the power structure. It is he who sustains the entire structure. That whoever has any power, it all comes from God. So the first conception of God can lead to a competitive notion. It's like, say, if you consider a game like tennis, there's one player who is the number one player. And that number one player may say have 2,500 ATP points. And the number two player has 2,300 ATP points. And somebody else has a different number of points. So now what happens is in this, there is one person at the top. No doubt that the person is the best. But anybody can rise up the ladder and get to the top. And if some other player wins a lot of matches, and then that person's ATP points become more than that, the current top player, then the top player changes. So Hiranyakashipu has this notion of Vishnu. He knows that Vishnu is by far the most powerful being. But he doesn't think that Vishnu is permanently powerful. See, I'll just come back to this point, but the basis of all being means that, yes, there is a hierarchy, but there is a hierarchy of beings, and we can say there are beings of different degrees of power. So we humans may have certain degree of power. So the Devatas, the gods, may have certain level of power. But God, in the sense of the Supreme Being, is in a different category. And while God exists above all, but then God is also, that Supreme Being God is sustaining all. Whatever whoever has, that has come from God. And if somebody understands this conception of God, then one will understand that there is no competition with God. Because whatever I have, with which I think I can compete with God, that is actually given to me by God. So if we go backwards, in this particular pastime, there is a description of how Hiranyakashipu rails against Vishnu. Say, after he comes to know that his brother Hiranyaksha has been killed. And he says, Vishnu is meant to be impartial. But he has become seduced by the Devatas. That the Devatas' prayers he's acted like a child. Like a child, where a child is given some sweets or some toys. The child foolishly goes on their side. Goes along with a person who might be a potential abductor also. So the child may be foolishly misled. So it says Vishnu is meant to be neutral and impartial. But because the Devatas have performed sacrifices, because the Devatas have they worshipped him, the Brahmanas have performed sacrifices for him, therefore he has given up his impartiality. He has been allured like a child. And because the one who is meant to be impartial has taken sides, he needs to be punished. So his plan is a twofold strategy for punishment. He said, first, you go and destroy all the Brahmanical sacrifices, so that those who tried to allure Vishnu, they will be punished. And then in the meanwhile, I will go and perform austerities. And he knows that actually to become as powerful as Vishnu is going to be very difficult. But then he says, don't worry. I am not the body, I am the soul. So therefore, even if I die while performing austerities, doesn't matter. I will continue the austerities in the future life. And I'll continue those austerities till I become one day powerful enough. Here Prabhupada quotes Bahunam Janmanam Ante. He's also thinking Bahunam Janmanam Ante. It may take many lifetimes, but a completely different direction. So the implication is something that, see, there is spiritual knowledge. And then, ideally speaking, spiritual knowledge is meant to lead to spiritual desires. But for some people, it doesn't happen like that. They may have spiritual knowledge, but they may pursue material desires. Now, we may say, how is that possible? We could have these 4 quadrants. I won't go into all the quadrants right now, but there are spiritual knowledge and there are spiritual desires. So this is the best situation to be in, where our knowledge leads to our transformation of our desires. Now, if somebody has spiritual knowledge, somebody can have material knowledge and somebody can have material desires. So what can happen is, somebody may have spiritual knowledge, but if their material desires are very strong, then they use their spiritual knowledge to further their material desires. I have written the book on reincarnation, demystifying reincarnation. And whenever I speak on that topic, I get different kinds of questions. So about reincarnation. So one of the questions is something I can never forget. This was one boy, he said to me that, I'm in love with this girl. And we have tried very hard to get together. But this was in India. So in the West, the boys and girls want to get together, they don't care for their parents very often. But in India, it doesn't work like that so much. So he says, our parents are not agreeing. We have tried our best, but her parents are arranging her marriage with someone else. So he says, I want to know, I now understood that I am the soul. So I want to know, what can I do in this life so that I can get to marry her in my next life? So, there is spiritual knowledge, but still there is a material desire. So similarly for Prahlāda, for Hiranyakashipu, he has spiritual knowledge. I am the soul. He even has the knowledge that Vishnu is supremely powerful. But his desires are still material. I want to be powerful. I want to get back at the people who have hurt me, who have killed my brother at the particular person. So I will gain power. So his whole life has been a pursuit of power. And now he has terrorized the devatas. They've all submitted to him. He has not yet been able to reach Vishnu because Vishnu is said to live far, far away. So he is thinking that if Vishnu comes, I will kill Vishnu. But he's asking, where is this Vishnu? You say that he's protecting you. Where is he? So the point over here is he has this So I talk about spiritual knowledge. Why will it happen that spiritual knowledge may not lead to the transformation of our desires? It's because we may hold on to particular desires. Or rather, we may hold on to particular conceptions. And when you hold on to particular conceptions, then what happens is, when we get some knowledge, ideally speaking, spiritual knowledge is meant to change our worldview. But some people continue to hold on to their worldview and make spiritual knowledge as just one more additional nugget that fits into their worldview. When they try to do that, that doesn't really work. Because they're holding on to their worldview. So, Richard Dawkins is the world's most known atheist. In fact, he's considered to be such a celebrated atheist that the atheists have instituted an award. They call it the Richard Dawkins Award for Raising Human Consciousness. They think that that believing in God is like lower consciousness, and rising towards atheism is enlightened consciousness. And they say that Richard Dawkins Award for Raising Human Consciousness. They literally use the word raising human consciousness. So anyway, so recently he made this statement that now a lot of immigration is happening from various countries to the first world, to Europe, to America, and there is some concern about it. So he made this comment that there's a lot of Islamic immigration happening in UK. And he says large number of mosques are coming up. And so his statement was that all religions are bad, but he says Christianity is fundamentally a decent religion. The same cannot be said about Islam. So he said that although I don't believe one word of the Christian gospel, but I am culturally a Christian. I like to hear Christmas carols. I like to see the architecture of cathedrals. And it would be a loss to UK if all of that went away. And if that were replaced by mosques, that would be a disaster. So I'm not going to talk about the political side of his statement. But the point is that here he says, I'm a cultural Christian. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in Christian teachings, but I'm a cultural Christian. It's like you have your atheistic worldview, and within the atheistic worldview, you try to bring something from some other worldviews. Oh, from this religious stuff, your singing is good. The architecture that you build is good. In fact, he inspired one of his fellow atheists to write an entire book called Religion for Atheists. Because their idea is, it seems that people are so foolish that they need some religion. So then we can have religion in the sense of you come together in a community, you sing some songs, you offer some prayers. So they offer prayers to the God of evolution. But the point is that, why does knowledge not lead to corresponding desires? Why does spiritual knowledge not lead to spiritual desires? If it's not happening, then why is that? That's because spiritual knowledge can either change our worldview, or it can just become incorporated into our worldview. This is what, to a large extent, is done in the entertainment industry. For example, in India, there are a lot of movies on reincarnation. And when there's movies on reincarnation, they are largely, their reincarnation is romanticized. Like the hero and heroine cannot get together in this lifetime, and next lifetime they come back and they get together. And quite often in the next lifetime, both the hero and heroine look like the same only. So it is the soul, it seems, that's this idea, I studied this a little bit when I wrote my book. The soul seems to be just a tool for transferring the body. Not that the soul is the real person, the body is the real person. So if we are holding on to our worldview, then there is no benefit, no tangible benefit of spiritual knowledge. So Prahlāda Mahārāja, when he's speaking in this almost confrontational seeming tone, he is trying to shake Hiranyakashipu out of his worldview. He says that God is not your competitor. Don't think of Vishnu as your enemy. A couple of verses later he will say that Vishnu is not your enemy. Your only enemy is your uncontrolled and misguided mind. It's interesting, those two describe as uncontrolled and misguided. Uncontrolled is where we have worldly desires that are dragging us. Misguided means that even if we get some information which will impel us to stop going along those desires, we just neglect that information. Once a person who was alcoholic had a friend who was trying to help him recover from alcoholism. So this alcoholic told his friend, yesterday I read a very serious article about the dangers of consuming alcohol. And that article inspired me to take immediate action. His friend was very pleased. Oh, wonderful. What action did you take? He said, I immediately stopped reading the article. So the idea is that some people can hold on to their particular desires so much that they're just not ready to change. So for Hiranyakashipu, his conception is that of his enemy. He's thinking his enemy is Vishnu. But Prahlāda is telling him, Vishnu is in a different category. Vishnu is the source of your strength. You cannot fight with him. He is not your enemy. Your enemy is actually your own uncontrolled and misguided mind. So that's why I said this is a last-ditch effort. Like sometimes when a person is about to do something utterly destructive, somehow we have to jolt them. So soft, gentle speech does not work. Then sometimes some shaking speech has to be required. That's what he's doing. But vinashakale viparita buddhi. When somebody is just bent on destruction, that person just doesn't understand. In the Greco-Roman tradition, there is the saying that when the gods want to destroy someone, they make that person angry. Because when anger comes, the person just goes on the path of self-destruction. But the point over here is that Hiranyakashipu Prahlāda is not just being reckless. He's being fearless in trying to make a last-ditch attempt to try to save his father, to free his father from his conceptions that are leading him to self-destruction. And we'll talk about last part. I said the acronym CHIT. So T is transformation. So how can this understanding that God is in a different category bring about a transformation in our lives? We live in an inherently competitive world. And even in spiritual life, when we talk about spiritual life, there are two aspects to it. There is the external and there is the internal. Now, ideally, the external and internal should grow together. Now, the external is quantifiable. We can quantify, okay, how many books did somebody distribute? How many people came for a particular person's class? How big a temple somebody built? It's quantifiable. And because of that, this can become competitive. And to some extent, this competition is not bad because it can inspire us to serve more enthusiastically. Srila Prabhupada would talk about numbers, double the book distribution. Devotees who do more service would get more recognition. So now, competition, when there is competition in devotion, now either it can increase our devotion or it can decrease our devotion. Decrease our devotion means we can get completely diverted from devotion. So the idea is that if we understand that everybody's power is coming from Krishna. So when I go out and distribute books, I'm able to distribute this many books. This person is able to distribute so many more books than me. And I can become envious of that person. See, most of us, because we are practicing bhakti, we will not think of Krishna as our competitor. Krishna is our Lord. But we may get into competition with others. Now, that competition can be constructive if it inspires all of us to serve Krishna better. But sometimes if we focus on the external side of bhakti only. So our purpose, as I said, spiritual knowledge should lead to transformation of spiritual desires. So spiritual desire is not just, oh, I want to become the number one book distributor. Now I want to build the biggest temple for the Lord. I want to have my videos with the maximum views. So that's not necessarily a spiritual desire. That can be a part of a spiritual desire. The spiritual desire is that I want to serve Krishna. And if Krishna wants me to use me as an instrument, Krishna wants to do wonderful things to me, my ability comes from Krishna. If this devotee is distributing more books, if this devotee is giving talks that are attracting more people, that devotee's power is also coming from Krishna. So if you can see the Krishna connection, then we won't start becoming jealous. We won't start trying to pull down that devotee. We won't start thinking that, oh, I'm worthless because I'm not getting material results. The key thing is we stay connected with Krishna. We maintain our strong service attitude. And if Krishna wants, Krishna can empower us to do extraordinary things. I'll conclude with 2 quick points. When Srila Prabhupada, after being spectacularly successful in Western outreach in the 1970s, once when he came to Mayapur, at that time, some of his god brothers, they were all great souls in their own ways, but sometimes even great souls can have some issues. So they criticized Prabhupada. They said that, they spoke this to others, and his disciples came to them. The disciples told him, he said, if he has come here, why didn't he come to Yogapith? He's come to the place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he didn't come to take darshan of the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. And then Prabhupada said, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared is not as important as why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. And he said, he appeared to spread the holy name. And I am doing that. Sometimes Prabhupada would make some statements which could seem proud, but Prabhupada had a point which was devotional, which was not about his ego. Prabhupada said that, why can't they see that it is our Guru Maharaj's mission that I am executing? That if our Guru Maharaj, if Krishna has chosen me as an instrument to fulfill his mission, why can't they see that? Why can't they appreciate that? Now, several of his godbrothers did appreciate, but some did not. So the point is that sometimes we can get too caught in a competitive mood. So the devotion has an external aspect which is measurable and therefore can be subject to competition. The internal aspect is how strong is our desire to serve Krishna. How strong is our desire to serve Krishna means not just that I do something by which I get fame. I do that which Krishna wants me to do, and I do it wholeheartedly. And in the 12th chapter, the last point I'll make, in the 12th chapter, Krishna talks about 8th verse, he talks about pure devotion. And someone is completely absorbed in Krishna. In 12.9, he talks about next level. The next level is more of practicing devotion. One is striving to fix the mind on Krishna. So in a ladder, this is the topmost. So it goes down 12.9, 10 other levels are there. Now, it's interesting, after practicing devotion, where we try to fix the mind on Krishna, what is the fruit of that? Krishna says the fruit of this is desire for Krishna. So this is something which we can check. When I do a service, what is increasing within me? Is my desire for Krishna increasing? I want to remember Krishna, I want to be absorbed in Krishna. Or is my desire for the fruits of that service in this world increasing? When I speak about Krishna, after that, do I feel, oh, Krishna is so wonderful, I'm so blessed to have Krishna as my Lord. I want to just love him and serve him. Or is it that, I am speaking such wonderful stuff, why are people not appreciating? How will I ensure that more people come for my classes? And if that becomes our obsession, that can and should be one concern. We want more and more people to relish Krishna's message. But the desire for Krishna increasing, this is the most important thing. And the desire for the fruits of our service to Krishna, that is also important. But the first is much, much more important. See, Prabhupada's devotion was such that for 40 years almost, he met Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Thakur in 1922, and he came to America in 1965. Till 1966, he practically didn't have much success also. For 40 years, he was serving his Guru Maharaj, and is trying to serve his Guru Maharaj in various ways. And he got practically no results. Very little results. But Prabhupada didn't become disheartened. Prabhupada didn't become bitter. When he came to America, and he was just a solitary Swami walking on the streets of America, unknown to the world. People who met him, they found he was so happy. He was so cheerful. He was so lively. Just speaking about Krishna. Because Prabhupada's, through all the service that he had done, the Prabhupada's desire for Krishna had become stronger and stronger and stronger. For his own sake, he was happy remembering Krishna. He of course wanted that more and more people should benefit from Krishna consciousness. But it was not that Prabhupada was unhappy or miserable because people were not appreciating his message. So this is the implication of the non-competitive understanding of God. That God can choose me as an instrument, God can choose somebody else as an instrument. What is important is not whether God chooses me as an instrument to do glorious things. What is important is that God chooses me to be a part of his team. And God draws me closer to him. And that Krishna is ready to do for all of us, if we just increase our desire for him. So Prahlāda Mahārāja had been ready to risk everything for the Lord, because his desire for the Lord was so strong. He was ready to risk his kingdom, that he was the heir. He was ready to risk his kingdom, risk his life, because for him, the Lord was the most important thing. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. That the theme I discussed today is from spiritual knowledge to spiritual desires. So the first point I discussed is the courage of Prahlāda Mahārāja. So he may seem reckless, but actually he's not reckless. He's not being deliberately provocative. He's provocative no doubt, but he is fearless in the sense that he is being thoughtfully provocative, not thoughtlessly provocative. What is this? The whole story is a character-driven story. And in that character-driven story, we see the character of the character Prahlāda. And what is this fearlessness? What is his thoughtfulness in speaking in a way? Your strength is actually not your strength. It comes from Vishnu. It is basically to elevate Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakashipu's conception of Vishnu, of God. Hiranyakashipu is thinking God is simply the best of all beings, and by austerity I can become better. But the correct understanding is God is the basis of all being. So Prahlāda's words are meant to try to get Hiranyakashipu from his conception to the actual conception. And then we discussed how spiritual knowledge, why it may not lead to spiritual desires, That's because sometimes people use spiritual knowledge not to change their worldview, but simply to fit into their worldview. Like I give the example of reincarnation being romanticized, and the idea of cultural Christianity without any idea, without any God, or religion for atheists. So that is not of much help. And the final thing we discuss is, so this was the courage, the implication of his statement, the statement that he made, and that implication, that what is the transformation that it can bring in our lives if we understand it, is that when we are practicing bhakti, there is the external result and the internal result. We want both. We want to grow in our desire for Krishna, become more and more absorbed in Krishna. The external result is in terms of the service that we do. Internal result is more in terms of the remembrance that becomes more and more increased, that becomes more and more absorbed. So in our bhakti, the external result is measurable, and therefore it can be subject to it can be competitive about it. And nothing wrong in being competitive, but if our desire for results of service, that should not become, if that becomes much greater than our desire for Krishna, then that is an unhealthy state. That is not what we want. Bhakti means our internal remembrance, our internal attraction to Krishna needs to increase. So if you understand that, it is Krishna who is empowering me, and it is Krishna who is empowering that devotee. If Krishna chooses to empower that devotee more than me, that is Krishna's will. Krishna is still wonderful, and that wonderful Lord is still in my heart. So we want this internal attraction to Krishna to increase. So through this non-competitive understanding of devotion, whether we get recognition in the world or not, our absorption in the Lord can always increase. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Do we have time? I don't know.
Well, not really.
Okay, sure.
But it's so illuminating to hear that, because we can apply these things to our own sadhana. It's a very practical class, and what kept coming to mind is I'm sure you're aware of this phenomenon. They call it the prosperity gospel.
Yeah.
Where you have these mega churches, thousands of people, they meet in stadiums sometimes, and the whole thing is to worship God so that you'll be prosperous. And in order to do that, you have to plant the seed by sending in your $50 to the pastor, every week or something like that.
In fact, these pastors, these pastors sometimes have their own private jets.
Not just one. More than one private jet. No.
And they flaunt their wealth as a proof of the reality on the working of the prosperity gospel.
And thousands of people fall for this. It's like a tremendous phenomenon in America, all over the world actually.
Yeah.
Such a corruption of real religion.
True. Thank you so much. So thank you very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanandi.